For many years now, the community consensus surrounding the date of the missing children's incident is that it took place on June 26, 1985, but this year didn't come from the games. Instead, it came from the Silver Eyes trilogy and the Fazbear's Fright anthology series. Given the fact that these books are not part of the game's continuity and the common belief that the year 85 isn't set in the games, many theorists have pushed the idea that the MCI occurred on a different date. But a while ago, I realized something which puts these alternative theories into jeopardy and supports the year of the MCI being 85. Hi, my name is James, and in this video I want to go over the information we have gotten about the MCI over the years to finally prove when the incident occurred. While I'm not the first person to make these connections, I haven't seen anyone else put them all into one video. So with that said, let's get into the theory. Our first look at the MCI was in FNAF 1's secret newspapers, where they state that on the night of June 26, two children were lured to the back room by a man in a mascot costume, and that later the police tied the incident to 3 other disappearances. The last newspaper details how the pizzeria struggled to stay in business after, quote, the tragedies that took place there many years ago. Our next look at the MCI comes in FNAF 2, where in the Foxy Go 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 minigame we see 5 children being entertained by Foxy, only for us to run into the room again and see that they are all dead. Given that the FNAF 2 restaurant doesn't have a Pirate's Cove, we can deduce that the incident happened in the previous location, which lines up with what Ralph says on the first night.
Now, I want you to forget anything you may have heard about the old location, Some people still have a somewhat negative impression of the company.
This lines up with the classic location struggling to remain open after the MCI. In FNAF 2, we also see a different incident in the Save Them minigame, which happens at the new location. We know this isn't the MCI because the bodies are spread out in multiple rooms, unlike what is said in the newspapers in FNAF 1 and in other media. This new incident, however, seems to be connected to a yellow suit.
Someone used one of the suits. We had a spare in the back, a yellow one. Someone used it.
This is followed up in FNAF 3, where we learn of the Springlock Suits, animatronic mascot hybrids which were retired after, quote,
an unfortunate incident at the sister location involving multiple and simultaneous Springlock failures.
The next tape then tells us that someone had used the Spring Bonnie costume after they were banned. At first this seems to be referring to the FNAF 2 quote, but in that same tape we're told that customers are not allowed in the safe room. Since the bodies in FNAF 2 are spread around the restaurant, we know this tape isn't referring to the event of Save Them, but instead the MCI. This tells us that the Springlock suits were retired before the incident. Moving on to FNAF 4, we get our first look at the Springlock suits before they were retired, which means that the MCI can't have happened before the bite of 83. This gives us a range of dates spanning from late 83 to early 87, which includes 85 in the middle. So, theory solved, right? 85 is in the range between these years, so that means the MCI happens in 85. While many casual fans might take this as gospel, the glaring lack of confirmation cannot be ignored, and just because something can happen doesn't mean it does. If only there was a game which explored the sister location mentioned in FNAF 3 that also had a provable date for when the Springlock failures occurred. 2016's sister location takes place in Circus Baby's Entertainment and Rentals, the successor to Circus Baby's Pizza World, a location which used Springlock suits. Furthermore, we're told that the suit was too dangerous to be used the way it was meant to be used, cementing this as the suit that caused the Springlocks to be discontinued. But how can we learn when the suits malfunctioned? Getting a date out of sister location is notoriously difficult, so how can I be so certain that we can use this game to get the date of the MCI? Well, unlike the main gameplay of sister location, we're given much more details about the time frame of Circus Baby's Pizza World's opening, including that it was only open for 1 day. This is useful as it tells us that the Springlock failure has to happen on the same day that Elizabeth died. So how do we figure that out? Well, throughout the game we can hear distorted audio of Baby saying the numbers
1, 5, 7, 8.
These numbers would then later reappear on the FNAF AR 8-bit baby skin, tying them to this minigame. This implies that these numbers correlate to a date, and given the fact that FNAF doesn't take place in the 16th century, then that means that these numbers aren't giving us a year, but instead the date of a single day. So let's find our date. We're going to start with the year and then narrow down from there. And since Scott is American, we're going to be displaying the date in the inferior month-day-year format. Let's begin. Immediately, we can put the year in the 80s, given that the 70s wouldn't become relevant to FNAF for another 9 years. So that leaves us with 81, 85, and 87. Since we see Springlock still in use in 83, we know that 81 isn't viable. It also can't be 87, since we know that the MCI happens years before Freddy's closes, and that means the Springlocks also have to have been discontinued for the same amount of years. That leaves us with the year 1985. Moving on to the month, we know that the MCI happened in June. Since we already used 8 and 5 for the year, we now have to use 1 and 7 for the month. These are the months January and July respectively, and since July is after June, we know it must be January. Which leaves us with one date, January 7th, 1985, just 5 months before the missing children's incident. So there you have it. Not only is the year 85 actually mentioned in the games, despite what many people say, but it also ties into how the other continuities handle the MCI. In the fourth closet, Afton states that the MCI was a recreation of Elizabeth accidentally getting caught by Baby, which makes sense in the games, as Pizza World shutting down would then mean William would have to move his experiments to Freddy's instead. But as we all know, Scott said not to use the Silver Eyes to solve the lore. But he did say to do that with Fazbear Frights. A short while after announcing the series, Scott made a Reddit post talking about whether or not the FNAF lore was solvable at the time, stating that it was hard to explain since the story was still ongoing, but that we should look to the novels to fill in some of blanks to the past. I think he might have forgot to put a "the" in that sentence. He also clarified in the comments of the post that the novels he was talking about were the upcoming Fazbear Frights. So while Secret or Mimic made it very clear that these books are not in the game's continuity, we can still use them for lore. And as we all know, the first story of Fazbear Frights is Into the Pit, which directly states the year of the MCI is 85, as does the graphic novel adaptation. Hi, yeah, it's me, James, from the edit. So it turns out, the graphic novel doesn't have a date in it, and also the artwork looks really bad. And the game adaptation, and the interactive novel adaptation. Considering there's 4 versions of Into the Pit, I'm inclined to believe that Scott is trying to tell us something with them, and I think that something is the year of the MCI, which lines up perfectly with Elizabeth's death. Thank you so much for watching. This video was meant to come out way sooner, but writer's block really got in the way, and eventually I just rewrote the whole script from scratch. I'm probably not going to be uploading again for another short while, but since I have both other projects to be working on, and also college is coming up soon, so that will be taking a lot more of my time too. I will try do some podcast episodes, as I've gotten more ideas recently than I had over the past few months, but that's not guaranteed. And with all that said, I think we're just about done here. My name's James, I hope you all had a wonderful day. Good night.